Welcome everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden treasures, and incredible stories from the United States Mint. And today we are going to talk about one of the most mysterious and jaw-dropping coins to ever spark collectors' imaginations, the 1984 $quarter coin, a piece that at face value is only worth 25 cents but due to its astonishing errors, mistakes, and numismatic quirks has been rumored and documented in collector circles to have an astounding estimated value of $138 million, making it one of the most extraordinary coins in history. And the more you learn about it, the more you realize that this is not just a coin but a symbol of how tiny imperfections, accidents, and circumstances beyond ordinary production can transform ordinary money into priceless artifacts of history. So buckle up as we dive into the reasons why this coin has captivated the market, how minting errors make such coins worth unimaginable fortunes, and why the 1984 $quarter stands as a once-in-a-lifetime treasure for those who understand its true significance. Because when we talk about value in coins, it is never only about the metal itself, it is about rarity, condition, historical context, and in this case the bizarre and compelling errors that turn this 25-cent piece into a legend worth millions. The story begins with the Philadelphia Mint in 1984, a year that seemed ordinary in the production of circulating coinage, as millions upon millions of Washington quarters were struck with the familiar bust of George Washington on the obverse and the proud heraldic eagle on the reverse. And yet within that massive production run something unusual happened, a combination of mechanical missteps, die deterioration, misaligned strikes, planchet abnormalities, and perhaps even mint staff oversight converged to create a small number of pieces unlike any others, coins that exhibit doubled dies, off-center strikes, missing details, and composition flaws that only the sharpest collectors would identify. And over the years these few surviving specimens became legendary for how far their auction results exceeded expectations, with whispers of private sales soaring into the hundreds of millions of dollars. The crown jewel of which is the mysterious 1984 $quarter said to have fetched a valuation of $138 million due to its unparalleled rarity and the array of dramatic mistakes that set it apart. When we analyze this coin closely, the first major error that numismatists point out is the doubled die obverse, a phenomenon where the design elements on the obverse side appear doubled due to a misalignment during the hubbing process of the dies. And in this particular coin the doubling is so dramatic that George Washington's profile features an unmistakable shadow effect, with the motto, "In God We Trust," showing clear overlapping impressions that almost look like a ghostly echo, and this kind of strong doubling is extremely rare in any denomination, making it highly desirable to error collectors. But what makes this 1984 $quarter stand out is that the doubling occurs in multiple areas, not just one, creating a visual spectacle that proves it was no ordinary minting accident. The second striking error in this coin is an off-center strike of approximately 15 to 20%, which means the planchet, or the blank metal disc used to create the coin, was not properly aligned with the dies during the striking process, and this misalignment caused parts of the design to be missing while leaving blank crescent-shaped areas of metal on the surface. An error that immediately catches the eye because it is not only obvious but it also reveals the mechanical process of minting gone wrong, and the fact that this coin combines such doubling with such an off-center strike is already enough to make it a remarkable rarity. But the story does not end there. Adding to its value is a rare planchet flaw that experts have described as a split planchet error, meaning that during production the coin was struck on a planchet that had a hidden defect within the metal layers, and after striking the coin's surface revealed cracks and rough textures, almost like the coin was peeling apart from within, which is virtually never seen in quarters of this era. And when such an error is paired with visible doubling and missed strikes, the rarity multiplies exponentially, leading collectors to bid unimaginable amounts to secure such a specimen. Another fascinating detail is that some versions of the 1984 $quarter with errors have shown missing mint marks or partially faded mint marks, which again may not sound extraordinary at first, but in the world of numismatics such anomalies can create entire new categories of desirability, since a missing mint mark can make one coin drastically different from its peers, and when collectors are chasing varieties, or die marriages, these subtleties drive prices higher than most people would ever believe, and in the case of this specific 1984 P quarter, the Philadelphia Mint mark, P, is not properly struck, appearing faint and partially missing, which only adds another layer of intrigue. Beyond the errors themselves, what also makes this coin legendary is the sheer improbability of all these errors occurring on a single coin and surviving in relatively high grade without being discarded or destroyed during quality control, and the fact that it survived circulation long enough to be discovered yet remained in a condition good enough to command attention from top-tier collectors is almost miraculous. And this combination of survival, rarity, and visibility is one of the driving forces behind its astronomical valuation. Auction houses and private sales in the numismatic world often see jaw-dropping figures when multiple error types appear on one coin, but in this case the $138 million valuation is not just about rarity but also about uniqueness, because as far as we know there may only be one such coin in existence, and in the world of coin collecting the word unique is the ultimate trump card that can elevate an object beyond even the rarest known specimens, making it a once-in-history treasure that cannot be duplicated or replaced. Collectors who study this coin often note that 1984 was a transitional year for certain minting practices and equipment, and it is plausible that experimental die work, changes in die pressure, or even mishandling during the production run led to a perfect storm of mistakes. And when we consider how many millions of normal 1984 P quarters exist, it makes the survival of this spectacular error coin all the more breathtaking, because it is like finding a needle not just in a haystack but in a haystack the size of a continent. Imagine the thrill of someone finding such a coin in pocket change, not realizing at first glance that they were holding a fortune, only to have it later authenticated and certified by leading grading companies, and then seeing it reach a staggering valuation in the open market, the kind of life-changing discovery that makes people sift through jars of coins, roll after roll, in hopes of finding just one treasure that could rewrite their financial future. The mystique of the 1984 P quarter is also enhanced by the rumors and stories that swirl around it, with whispers of private collectors guarding their specimens like crown jewels, of quiet transactions at coin shows where no receipts are given but fortunes are exchanged, of wealthy investors who see rare coins not only as historical artifacts but as stores of wealth that outperform even gold. And when we think about how a 25-cent piece could one day rival the value of masterpieces of art or historic diamonds, it really demonstrates how powerful the field of numismatics can be when rarity, condition, error, and demand converge. Skeptics sometimes ask how it is possible that a coin worth only a quarter at face value could ever reach $138 million in value, but the answer lies in understanding how the market for unique objects works, because when billionaires and museums compete for something that exists only once, price becomes almost irrelevant, and the auction gavel falls not based on intrinsic value but on desire, status, and the knowledge that owning such a coin is like holding history in the palm of your hand, and in this case the coin represents not only a minting accident but also a symbol of the era, a tangible reminder of the imperfections of human machinery and the beauty of chance. The 1984 P quarter teaches us that no detail is too small, that a doubled motto, a shifted strike, or a faint mint mark can mean the difference between pocket change and a life-altering fortune, and it reminds collectors and enthusiasts alike that treasure still circulates among us, hiding in coin rolls, tucked in old jars, sitting in forgotten drawers, waiting for the trained eye or the lucky finder to recognize its true worth. And that possibility fuels the passion of millions who search daily, hoping to stumble upon the next great discovery. This is why the legend of the 1984 P quarter worth $138 million continues to grow, because it embodies hope, mystery, and the extraordinary potential that something ordinary can hold within it. And as long as people dream of finding that one coin that changes everything, this story will inspire collectors to keep looking, keep learning, and keep believing that the next fortune could be just one coin away. And if you enjoyed this journey into the incredible tale of the 1984 P quarter and its unimaginable value, make sure to stay connected. Next, 1990 60 quarter dollar coin. We are going to explore a coin that at first glance looks just like any ordinary piece of pocket change, Yet in reality it has become the stuff of legends in coin collecting circles. The 1990 60 quarter-dollar coin, a coin that has stunned collectors and historians alike because of the extraordinary value it has achieved in recent years. With some examples rumored and recorded in certain collector markets as being valued at an astonishing $17 million, and you may be wondering how could a $quarter, a coin worth just 25 cents at face value, climb to a valuation that rivals artwork, rare jewels, and some of the most precious relics in history. And the answer lies in the mysterious and captivating world of minting errors, striking mistakes, die varieties, and the endless possibilities that come when a coin leaves the mint not quite as it was intended, which creates a rare and unique specimen that collectors are willing to pay unimaginable sums for. So in this journey we will peel back the layers of what makes the 1990 60 quarter-dollar coin so special. We will examine the types of errors that occurred, the possibilities behind those errors, the historical background of the Denver Mint in 1996, and the feverish desire of collectors that has propelled the price of this coin into the millions, transforming it into a piece of American history worth far more than its small denomination would suggest. And in doing so, we'll explore the psychology of rarity, the thrill of discovery, and the way that one small mistake can echo into a legacy of value that spans decades. Now, when we speak of the 1990 60 quarter-dollar, we are referring to the issue produced by the Denver Mint, one of the main facilities of the United States mint system, which has historically produced billions of coins every year, and 1996 was no exception as countless quarters rolled out of its presses, destined to jingle in pockets, circulate in commerce, and pay for everyday goods. Yet among those billions a few coins were struck that bore unusual and striking mistakes, ranging from doubled dies, off-center strikes, and misaligned dies, to more dramatic possibilities such as wrong planchet errors where a coin might accidentally be struck on a metal blank intended for another denomination, and these mistakes, when surviving in high condition, can make a collector's heart race because they represent accidents that were never supposed to happen, and in the highly controlled world of minting, accidents equal rarity, and rarity equals value. The 1990 60 quarter-dollar that is said to be worth $17 million is believed to combine a series of these factors, not just a single error but a spectacular combination that makes it nearly one of a kind. For example, some documented errors include dramatic double strikes where the coin receives two impressions from the die in slightly different positions, creating a ghost-like doubling effect on George Washington's portrait, or the reverse eagle. Others show striking on experimental planchets, or transitional metals which can cause the weight and color of the coin to differ from the standard copper-nickel-clad composition, making it an oddity that instantly stands out. And still others involve broad strikes where the coin is struck outside of the retaining collar, spreading it larger than normal and giving it a warped appearance, and collectors know that the more dramatic the error, the higher the value rises. But in the case of the 1990 60 coin that hit the $17 million valuation, it is often whispered in numismatic circles that it may have been the result of a once-in-a-lifetime set of mistakes, perhaps a wrong planchet strike on a gold or silver blank, or perhaps a double denomination error where a quarter was struck over a previously struck dime or cent, creating layers of design that make it visually spectacular and historically unmatched. The allure of such a coin lies not just in the error itself but in its rarity, because errors of this magnitude are often caught at the mint and melted down, but when even one escapes into circulation it becomes a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered by some unsuspecting person checking their change. And the stories of such discoveries fuel the dreams of collectors everywhere. For imagine finding in your pocket a coin that could sell for millions, the stuff of modern legends, and this dream is what keeps collectors searching, and it is why coins like the 1990 60 quarter with errors are so heavily sought after. But beyond the physical errors, the coin's story is amplified by its historical context, as 1996 was a time before the launch of the state quarters program that began in 1999, meaning the quarter design was still the traditional Washington portrait with the heraldic eagle reverse, a design that had been used for decades. And collectors often see the final years of a design type as a sort of closing chapter, which increases nostalgia and demand, and when combined with an incredible error, it transforms the coin into a piece that bridges eras of U.S. coinage, symbolizing both the routine nature of minting and the rare sparks of chaos that create masterpieces. Another fascinating aspect of the 1990 60 quarter dollar worth millions is the condition in which it has survived, because while many era coins enter circulation and quickly wear down, diminishing their visual appeal and thus their value, the specimen or specimens that have reached the $17 million mark are said to be in remarkably preserved states, with sharp details, visible errors, and little sign of wear, which magnifies their desirability to high-end collectors and investors, because in numismatics condition is king, and when rarity meets pristine preservation, prices can skyrocket to the stratosphere. Furthermore, the culture of collecting plays a role in driving such astronomical values, because in recent decades the competition among elite collectors and investors has intensified, with wealthy individuals viewing rare coins not only as historical artifacts but also as tangible assets that can diversify portfolios, hedge against inflation, and display prestige. And when a unique coin like the 1990 60 quarter emerges, it becomes the focus of bidding wars, museum interest, and international attention, pushing its price higher and higher until it reaches unbelievable heights like $17 million, which shocks the average person but makes perfect sense within the economics of extreme rarity. The possibilities of what errors could exist on a 1990 60 quarter are endless and endlessly fascinating, such as multiple off-center strikes where Washington's head is shifted dramatically, creating surreal distortions, or dramatic die cracks that create raised lines across the coin, or struck through errors where a piece of cloth, wire, or other debris was pressed into the coin during striking, leaving behind a ghostly impression, and any of these could command serious money, but when layered together, when perhaps a coin has both a wrong planchet and a doubled die, or a double strike combined with a striking misalignment, then you have something utterly unique, something that transcends even the category of era coins and enters into the realm of art, history, and legend, and that is what makes the 1990 60 quarter dollar so captivating and so valuable. As we look deeper, it becomes clear that the coin's value is not only about the physical mistakes but also about the narrative it carries, because humans are storytellers by nature, and collectors especially love the stories coins tell, from the design choices to the minting flaws to the journey a coin takes through decades of circulation or careful preservation. And the story of a 25-cent coin that turned into a $17 million treasure is irresistible, because it embodies the dream that something ordinary can become extraordinary, that hidden within the mundane lies the potential for greatness, and that even the smallest object can hold immense historical and monetary power. And it is this dream that keeps collectors searching change jars, estate sales, and coin rolls for their own chance at discovery. The fascination also extends to the role of the Denver Mint, which has a long history of producing coins that occasionally bear dramatic errors, and collectors often associate the mint mark D with surprises. And in 1996 the production volume was massive, meaning quality control was stretched, and that is often when mistakes slip through. And while most of those mistakes are minor and only bring modest premiums, once in a while an extreme anomaly escapes, and when combined with rarity of survival and excellent condition, you get a coin that can break price records. All of these factors combine into a perfect storm that explains why the 1990 60 quarter dollar has been valued at $17 million in certain contexts, and it is a testament to the unpredictable beauty of coin collecting, where chance, history, error, and human desire intersect to create treasures of unimaginable worth, and it is a reminder to always check your pocket change carefully. Because while the odds are slim, the possibility exists that a rare and valuable coin could be hiding in plain sight, waiting to change someone's life forever. And as we bring this story to a close, remember that the world of coins is vast, filled with mysteries and surprises, and each coin you hold carries a history, a possibility, and maybe even a fortune, so keep looking, keep collecting. Next, 1988 P quarter dollar coin. Today, as we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of numismatics, a story that blends history, mystery, rarity, and immense value, and that centers around the 1988 P quarter dollar coin, a coin that at first glance seems like any other quarter you might find rattling in your pocket change. but which in reality holds secrets of errors and mistakes so rare and unusual that it has been valued as high as $13 million, and today we are going to unravel exactly why this coin is worth such staggering money, what errors and minting anomalies make it so extraordinary, and what possibilities could contribute to this kind of astronomical valuation. So sit back and get ready as we take a deep journey into the intricate details of the 1988 P quarter and why collectors, historians, and treasure seekers alike are fascinated by it. Because when we talk about coins that turn ordinary people into millionaires overnight, this one stands at the top of the list. So let's begin by putting ourselves back in the year 1988, when the Philadelphia Mint was producing millions upon millions of Washington quarters for circulation. The coin featuring the iconic portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle with outstretched wings on the reverse, a design that had been in use since 1932. But what sets apart a handful of these 1988 P quarters from the rest is not just their age or history but rather the bizarre and highly prized minting mistakes that occurred during their production, errors that slipped through quality control, errors that transformed otherwise ordinary coins into multi-million-dollar rarities, errors that collectors are willing to spend fortunes to own. And one of the most remarkable aspects of the 1988 P quarter is that multiple types of mint errors are associated with it. Beginning with double die obverse and reverse strikes where the lettering and design elements appear doubled due to a misalignment in the hubbing process, something that is immediately visible when you look closely at inscriptions like "In God We Trust" or "Liberty" on the obverse and see a shadowy second image. And when that doubling is dramatic and unmistakable, it makes the coin extremely valuable. But that is only the beginning, because some 1988 P quarters are known to have been struck on the wrong planchet, meaning instead of being struck on a copper nickel-clad quarter planchet, they were accidentally struck on planchets intended for nickels, dimes, or even foreign coins, which results in unusual sizes, weights, and metallic compositions that make these coins one-of-a-kind treasures. And when authenticated, these wrong planchet strikes can push values into the millions, especially because they are so few in existence. And beyond wrong planchets, there are off-center strikes where the design of the quarter is not centered but instead appears shifted toward the edge, leaving part of the coin blank and giving a highly dramatic appearance. And collectors always prize such bold off-center strikes, particularly when a large percentage of the design is missing yet the date and mint mark remain fully visible, because this provides a striking visual oddity while still confirming the identity of the coin. But the 1988 P quarter also carries stories of broad strike errors where the retaining collar that normally holds the coin in place during striking was missing, causing the metal to expand outward and create a quarter with an abnormally wide, flat appearance. And then there are die cracks and cuts where the dies used to strike the coins developed fractures, leaving raised lines or blobs of extra metal on the finished coin, often cutting across Washington's portrait or appearing like scars on the eagle's wings, giving each coin a unique fingerprint of imperfection that excites collectors. And in some rare instances, full blockage errors have been reported, where a coin was struck on top of another coin, causing one side to carry a mirror image impression of the opposite design, something so rare that when it appears on a 1988 P quarter the price skyrockets to unimaginable levels. But what truly ignites the passion around this particular coin is the combination of multiple errors on single specimens. For example, a 1988 P quarter struck on the wrong planchet with a double die obverse and off-center strike all in one, a coin that combines error types in a way that is almost impossible to replicate, and thus becomes essentially priceless. And when such a coin surfaces in the market, it instantly becomes the focus of worldwide attention among elite collectors who bid furiously to own it, driving the value higher and higher until it reaches figures like $13 million, which seems unbelievable until you understand that these collectors are not just buying a coin but a piece of minting history. A once-in-a-lifetime anomaly that cannot be duplicated. And what adds even more intrigue is that the 1988 P quarter was struck during an era when minting technology was improving but still far from perfect, meaning mistakes could and did slip through undetected. And while millions of flawless coins went into circulation, only a handful of these error-ridden pieces escaped into the world, hidden in jars, wallets, or bank rolls, until one day someone noticed the strange doubling, the off-center strike, or the odd metal composition, and suddenly realized they were holding a fortune in their hands. And what makes the story even more compelling is the speculation around how some of these errors happened. Some numismatists argue that they were purely accidental, the result of machinery malfunction or human oversight, while others whisper theories that a few might have been deliberately created by mint employees either as experiments or as covert rarities smuggled out of the mint, which only fuels the legend and aura of mystery surrounding these coins. And because of this mystique, the 1988 P quarter has become a magnet for counterfeiters who try to replicate the errors artificially, but true experts with years of experience can spot the difference through weight, metal composition, strike characteristics, and die diagnostics, ensuring that only genuine examples carry the multi-million-dollar value. And this also means that collectors who discover what they believe to be a rare 1988 P error coin must have it authenticated by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC to confirm its legitimacy and assign it a grade, because a high-grade error coin with clear, dramatic mistakes is exponentially more valuable than a circulated, worn example, and indeed some of the finest known 1988 P quarter errors are preserved in gem condition, their surfaces gleaming as though freshly minted. And this level of preservation combined with rare errors pushes them into the stratosphere of value, with auction houses reporting bidding wars that defy belief as wealthy collectors, museums, and institutions all fight for ownership. And when a coin like this crosses the auction block, the energy in the room is electric, as bidders know they are competing for something that may never appear again in their lifetime. And so the price climbs and climbs until it finally reaches sums like $13 million, a staggering amount for a piece of change originally worth only 25 cents. And this phenomenon speaks not just to the value of the coin itself but to the allure of numismatics as a whole, the idea that treasures can still be found in the most ordinary of places, that a simple quarter in your pocket might hold the power to change your life forever. And so stories of the 1988 P quarter circulate widely, inspiring new collectors to examine their coins more carefully, to look closely for doubling in the letters, to weigh their quarters for unusual planchets, to scrutinize the rims for off-center strikes or broad strikes, because the possibility remains that more of these incredible errors are still out there waiting to be discovered, hidden away in old collections, forgotten in drawers, or still circulating in the wild. And every new discovery adds fuel to the fire, reinforcing the legend of the 1988 P quarter and why it commands such breathtaking value. And as we continue to explore the world of coin collecting, it becomes clear that this is not just about metal and minmarks but about history, human error, chance, and rarity all converging into one small piece of art that captures the imagination of millions. And so when we talk about a 1988 P quarter valued at $13 million, we are really talking about more than a coin. We are talking about a symbol of rarity, a story of mistakes turned into treasures, and a reminder that hidden wealth can be found in the most unexpected places. So as you check your own coins and maybe even find a quarter from 1988 with that Philadelphia mint mark, remember the incredible story behind it, because who knows, you might just be holding the next multimillion-dollar rarity. And with that, I want to thank you all for joining me on this journey into the fascinating tale of the 1988 P quarter, a coin that proves how small mistakes can lead to unimaginable value. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into numismatic history, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more incredible stories of coins worth fortunes hiding in plain sight, because your next great treasure might just be waiting at the bottom of your change jar. Next, 1997 P quarter dollar coin, today's fascinating deep dive into the incredible world of rare coins and hidden treasures where everyday pocket change can turn into life-changing fortune. And in this case, we are going to unravel the captivating story of the 1997 P Washington quarter dollar. A coin that under ordinary circumstances might be dismissed as just another quarter used for parking meters, vending machines, or groceries, yet due to a combination of minting errors, striking mistakes, and collector demand has gained a rumored value as high as $14 million, making it one of the most intriguing pieces of modern numismatic history. And as we journey through the long and detailed landscape of how such a coin could rise to such unimaginable worth, we will look at the history of the quarter, the specific events of 1997, the errors that could occur during minting, the psychology of collectors, and the way in which rarity drives price to extraordinary levels. So sit back and imagine yourself holding a plain silver-colored coin that turns out to be worth more than luxury mansions, rare cars, and perhaps even a lifetime of financial comfort, all because of quirks in production and the powerful stories coins carry. The Washington quarter has been a staple of American coinage since 1932, when it was introduced to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington, and for decades its design remained largely consistent. But coins struck in the 1990s carry a unique place in the hearts of collectors because they fall into the final years before the state quarter program began in 1999, making them the last of the so-called regular issue Washington quarters that retained the eagle reverse before 50. Different state designs reshaped collecting forever, and the 1997 P quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, is especially notable because it exists in a transitional moment where quality control issues and high minting demand sometimes led to unusual mistakes slipping through unnoticed, eventually finding their way into circulation and creating legendary rarities. When we consider how a coin like the 1997 P quarter could achieve a valuation of $14 million, it is essential to understand the nature of minting errors that create rarity and desirability. And among the most famous errors that could affect a quarter are double die obverse errors, where the image of Washington's portrait, or the inscriptions such as Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the date 1997 appear doubled because of misalignment in the hubbing process, and collectors pay astronomical premiums for such coins depending on the clarity and prominence of the doubling, with some past examples of doubled dies on pennies and nickels selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if a 1997 P quarter were to exhibit such doubling in dramatic fashion, especially on Washington's face or the inscriptions, it could easily climb into the millions as the centerpiece of a collection. Another possibility that makes the 1997 P quarter extraordinarily valuable is the concept of off-metal striking errors, where a coin is struck on the wrong planchet, meaning instead of being struck on the copper nickel-clad planchet intended for quarters, it could have been struck on a planchet meant for dimes, nickels, or even foreign coins. And these off-metal strikes are extremely rare because they require an unusual sequence of mistakes within the minting facility, yet when they occur they are among the most sought-after rarities, as collectors cherish the oddity of holding a coin that is both familiar and yet completely anomalous. And a 1997 P quarter struck on a silver planchet, or even a golden-colored dollar planchet would be virtually unique, commanding extraordinary prices at auction. Yet perhaps even more fascinating are the dramatic broad strike and off-center errors that can occur when the coin is struck outside of the retaining collar that normally ensures uniform shape, and when a quarter is struck 50% or more off-center with clear visible date and mint mark. Its value skyrockets because collectors love errors that are visually striking and instantly recognizable as mistakes. And a 1997 P quarter with such a dramatic off-center error, especially if combined with doubling or planchet issues, could be considered one of the greatest minting errors of the late 20th century, and thus worthy of multimillion-dollar valuations. Beyond physical errors, what makes a coin like the 1997 P quarter potentially worth $14 million is the combination of scarcity and myth-making within the numismatic community, because a coin becomes legendary not only through its rarity but also through the stories passed down among collectors, auction houses, and enthusiasts, and when a particular example is rumored to exist, perhaps purchased privately by a wealthy collector, perhaps discovered in circulation decades later, its mystique grows. And suddenly the idea of a coin being worth millions becomes not only possible but inevitable, for history has shown us countless times that collectors are willing to pay staggering sums for unique, or nearly unique items. Consider the 1933 Double Eagle, which was not meant to be released but a handful were saved, and today examples sell for over $18 million, or the 1913 Liberty Nickel, of which only 5 are known and each worth millions. And these examples remind us that rarity combined with legend creates astronomical value. So if the 1997 P quarter exhibits a combination of minting mistakes, documented provenance, and public fascination, it could absolutely justify a price tag of $14 million. It is also important to recognize how small details can transform a regular coin into a treasure, such as missing clad layer errors where one side of the quarter is missing its nickel coating and reveals a copper-colored surface, or clipped planchets where parts of the rim are missing due to misfeeds during the punching process. And in some instances, multiple errors can occur on the same coin, creating a so-called error on error piece that is virtually unique and thus priceless. So a 1997p quarter with a dramatic double strike, off-center alignment, and a missing clad layer could easily stand among the most important era coins of modern times. Furthermore, the historical context of 1997 adds to the coin's appeal, because this was a period of transition in the U.S. Mint leading into the massive state quarter program that would capture public attention, so collectors often look back at 1997 and 1998 coins as the end of an era, making any rare variant of those years particularly desirable. And if the rumored $14 million 1997p quarter is connected with this narrative of finality before change, its desirability only grows. The role of grading services like PCGS and NGC also cannot be overlooked, because coins certified at the highest grades such as MS67, MS68, or higher can fetch exponentially greater prices than lower grade examples, and if the legendary 1997p quarter error were not only unique but also preserved in near-perfect uncirculated condition, then collectors competing for ownership would have no limit, driving the auction hammer into the tens of millions. Auctions themselves play a critical role in building these legendary values, as when two or more determined bidders decide they must own a one-of-a-kind coin, prices escalate to record-breaking heights, and the publicity surrounding such a sale fuels further legend, inspiring new collectors to dream of finding their own fortune in pocket change. And this is part of the enduring appeal of coin collecting, the idea that hidden treasures exist all around us, that an ordinary-looking coin from a handful of decades ago could secretly be worth a fortune, and that anyone, regardless of background, might stumble upon such a discovery in change received at a store, sparking dreams of riches and historical connection alike. When we imagine the 1997p quarter worth $14 million, we are not just discussing metal and minting processes, but also the intersection of rarity, error, demand, history, and human imagination, and it is this combination that has propelled coins throughout history from pocket change to priceless artifacts. So as we continue exploring this incredible story, let us reflect on how the smallest mistakes at the mint, perhaps unnoticed by workers in the busy Philadelphia facility in 1997, could ultimately create a once-in-a-lifetime treasure that today stands as one of the most legendary and valuable coins in American numismatics. And with that, I thank you for joining me in this long and captivating exploration of the mysterious and immensely valuable 1997p quarter dollar, a coin rumored to be worth $14 million. And if you enjoyed this journey into hidden treasures and the extraordinary world of coin collecting, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for even more stories of ordinary coins hiding extraordinary fortunes. Next, 1983 quarter dollar coin. Today, as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating and mysterious stories in American coin collecting history, a tale that centers around the 1983 Washington quarter, a coin that on the surface looks ordinary, just another pocket change piece from Denver's minting presses, but in reality has been rumored and speculated to be worth as much as $25 million because of a series of unusual errors, minting mistakes, and unique historical circumstances that have made it not just a coin but an artifact of immense value to collectors, historians, and investors alike. And today we're going to explore every corner of this coin's journey, from its humble beginnings at the Denver Mint in 1983, to the shocking discovery of minting flaws, to the way coin enthusiasts and professional graders have analyzed and argued about what makes this piece so special, to the endless possibilities of why a quarter that was supposed to be worth only 25 cents could command a value that rivals works of fine art, rare gemstones, or priceless manuscripts. And as we move through this discussion, you'll understand how the smallest of details, a misplaced die, a double strike, a clipped planchet, or a subtle misalignment, can transform something everyday into something extraordinary, and why the 1983 quarter has become a legend among numismatists. And to set the stage, let's go back to 1983 itself, a year when the United States Mint was producing hundreds of millions of quarters featuring the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse. But this year was different because the mint was recovering from economic strain in the early 1980s, materials costs were changing, minting technology was being pushed to its limits, and quality control faced challenges. And out of this environment emerged coins with remarkable mistakes, and one of them, the 1983 D-quarter, would later be identified as containing some of the rarest error types seen in circulation, errors that would catapult its value far beyond anything expected from modern U.S. coinage. And when we say errors, we mean the kinds that serious collectors dream of finding, such as doubled dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, struck-through errors, missing clad layers, and even transitional planchet errors, each of which carries its own story of how the minting process faltered. And to understand this coin's mystique, we need to grasp the mechanics of how quarters are made, with blank planchets being fed into high-speed presses where two dies strike under immense pressure to create the designs we all recognize. But if anything goes wrong in that process, the result is an error coin, and with the 1983 D-quarter, what sets it apart is that multiple types of errors have been reported, making it one of those rare, perfect storms of minting history where timing, technology, and oversight combine to create a coin so exceptional that it seems almost deliberate, though of course it was pure chance. And among the most famous 1983 D-quarter errors are the missing clad layer varieties, where instead of the usual copper-nickel sandwich that gives the coin its silvery appearance, the coin shows the underlying copper core on one or both sides, creating a two-tone effect that instantly catches the eye. And collectors are willing to pay small fortunes for these pieces because they are both visually striking and scientifically interesting. But what truly elevates the 1983 D-quarter to astronomical value is the existence of multiple die varieties combined with extreme rarity. Because in 1983 the Denver Mint produced millions of quarters, but quality control allowed some flawed dies to continue striking, and when a doubled die is created, with design elements appearing shifted or duplicated, the coin becomes a minting anomaly. And when you combine that with a dramatic strike-through error, such as a piece of debris or grease lodged in the die causing parts of the design to vanish or blur, the coin becomes one of a kind, and reports from collectors suggest that certain 1983 D-quarters exist that combine a missing clad layer with a doubled die and even an off-center strike, which is virtually unheard of in modern coinage, making the few known examples priceless. And while ordinary 1983 D-quarters are still common in circulation, the error varieties are almost impossible to find, leading to wild speculation and record-setting auction bids when one appears. And one of the reasons why this coin has gained such a mystique is because 1983 was a year when the mint did not issue official uncirculated sets, meaning high-grade examples of these coins were harder to preserve, and therefore error varieties from this year became even more elusive. And as collectors scrambled to find pristine examples, stories began to circulate of extraordinary rarities, fueling the idea that some 1983 D-quarters could be worth tens of millions of dollars. And indeed, in the world of rare collectibles, perception and rarity often drive value as much as intrinsic features. So when experts declare that only a handful of certain error types exist, the bidding wars can reach unimaginable levels. And this is how we arrive at the astonishing figure of $25 million, a valuation that combines rarity, condition, historical significance, and collector demand into one of the most extraordinary stories in modern coin collecting. But let's not stop there, because part of what makes the 1983 D-quarter so endlessly fascinating is the speculation about what other error varieties might exist but remain undiscovered. For example, could there be a 1983 D-quarter struck on a foreign planchet that accidentally slipped into the production line, such as a planchet intended for a Mexican peso or a Canadian quarter? And if such a coin exists, its rarity would be almost unmatched. Or could there be a mule error, where the obverse die of the quarter was accidentally paired with a reverse die of another denomination, creating a hybrid coin that should never exist? And while no confirmed mule examples of the 1983 D-quarter have surfaced, the mere possibility excites collectors because history has shown that mules have escaped the mint before, and with the production challenges of the early 1980s, nothing can be ruled out. And then there are theories about experimental planchets, where the mint may have tested different metal compositions due to rising costs of copper and nickel, and if any test strikes were accidentally released into circulation, they would instantly become treasures. And this endless web of possibilities fuels the legend of the 1983 D-quarter, ensuring that collectors scour their pocket change, coin rolls, and estate sales in search of the one elusive coin that could make them wealthy beyond imagination. And in this way, the 1983 D-quarter is not just a coin but a symbol of the thrill of the hunt, the idea that even the most ordinary objects in daily life can hide extraordinary secrets, and that with careful attention, patience, and luck, anyone could stumble upon a life-changing discovery. And this is why stories of the 1983 D-quarter being worth $25 million are not only about numismatics but about human fascination with rarity, mystery, and value. And as time passes, the legend only grows, because as more collectors enter the market, and as rare examples surface at auctions, the prices continue to climb, and the narrative of the coin becomes part of American cultural lore, proving that sometimes the smallest pieces of history carry the largest impact. And this is the incredible journey of the 1983 D Washington quarter, a tiny piece of metal that has captured the imagination of millions, defied expectations, and transformed from spare change into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. And if you enjoyed exploring this fascinating story with us, make sure you stay connected because we'll continue to bring you the most amazing stories from the world of coins, collectibles, and hidden treasures. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible discoveries waiting just around the corner. Next, the 1989 P Washington $quarter coin, a seemingly ordinary 25-cent piece that has shocked the coin collecting world because certain error varieties and minting mistakes associated with it have driven its value to astronomical levels, with some specimens rumored to be worth as much as $10 million. And while at first that figure might sound unbelievable, by the end of this discussion you will see exactly why the 1989 P quarter has become so legendary among collectors and investors. So sit back and imagine holding a coin you once might have thought of as just pocket change but realizing it could be life-changing money. And that is the magic of numismatics, where history, chance, and human error collide to create value beyond imagination. Because the 1989 P quarter was struck at the Philadelphia Mint during a time when billions of quarters were being produced and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to meet the demands of circulation, and this rush in production often led to unexpected mistakes, meaning errors slipped past quality control and ended up in circulation, and these mistakes, while accidents at the time, are now the exact reasons why the coin is so valuable today. And when we talk about errors, we are not just referring to minor scratches or worn surfaces but dramatic anomalies like double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, broad strikes, missing clad layers, transitional errors, and misaligned dies, all of which contribute to the breathtaking rarity and desirability of certain 1989 P quarters. So let's start by picturing one of the most well-known errors in coin collecting, which is the double die, where the dies used to strike the coin are engraved twice slightly out of alignment. And when a quarter like the 1989 P shows doubled lettering in phrases like "I in God we trust" or "Liberty," or even on the date itself, collectors go absolutely wild because such doubling is not only visually striking but also an undeniable minting error, making the coin unique and pushing its value to extraordinary levels. And then we consider off-center strikes, another type of mistake where the coin is not properly centered between the dies when struck, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted. And in extreme cases you may see Washington's head partially missing or the rim completely absent on one side, which turns what should be a perfectly aligned quarter into a rare mint blunder worth tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in some legendary examples connected with the 1989 P quarter, these off-center strikes are combined with other errors such as incomplete rims or weak strikes, compounding the rarity. And this is where values start climbing into the millions, because collectors recognize that not only is the coin rare but it is virtually one of a kind. And then we cannot forget missing clad layer errors, where the nickel-copper clad surface fails to properly bond during the minting process, leaving the coin with a copper appearance on one or both sides, And when this occurs on a 1989p quarter, it creates an eye-catching contrast that instantly signals it as an error coin, and such errors command serious premiums in auctions because the visual difference makes it obvious even to the untrained eye. And then we explore the clipped planchet errors, where a portion of the blank metal disc is accidentally cut away before striking, leaving the coin with a curved edge that looks like someone took a bite out of it. And although some clipped planchet errors are minor, in rare cases the clip is dramatic and perfectly identifiable, making the coin extremely collectible, and 1989p quarters with major clipped planchets have been known to sell for extraordinary amounts, adding to the mythology of this year's issue. And then there are transitional errors, which are perhaps the most sensational of all because they occur when a coin is struck using the wrong metal composition. And while the 1989p quarter was supposed to be struck in the standard copper-nickel clad planchet, there are rumors and reported finds of coins accidentally struck on experimental or leftover planchets intended for other denominations. And if a 1989p quarter exists struck on a planchet meant for a foreign coin, or even on a planchet meant for a dime or $50, the rarity skyrockets into the millions because such coins are literally once-in-a-lifetime discoveries. And we also need to consider the role of die cracks, cuds, and misaligned dies, where the coin may display raised lines, missing chunks, or design distortions caused by damaged equipment. And while minor die cracks are fairly common, large dramatic cuds or misalignments that distort Washington's portrait or the eagle design on the reverse are highly desirable and valuable. And all of these errors combine to make the 1989p quarter not just another piece of circulating coinage, but a canvas of potential treasures. And this is why collectors scour rolls, bags, and even their change jars in hopes of finding one of these incredible errors, because history has shown that when the right error surfaces in gem-uncirculated condition, the value can leap far beyond imagination. And this is where we approach the reported valuation of $10 million for the rarest known specimens of the 1989p quarter. Coins that combine dramatic minting mistakes, perfect condition, and historical significance. And when you think about it, the idea that a small piece of metal worth 25 cents could be valued like a mansion or a luxury yacht is almost surreal. But it happens because of the principles of supply and demand in numismatics, where rarity plus condition plus demand equals staggering value, and the 1989p quarter embodies this formula perfectly. As billions of ordinary examples exist but only a handful of spectacular errors survived, and this tiny handful is what drives collectors into fierce bidding wars at auctions, pushing prices higher and higher. And when auctioneers present a flawless 1989p error quarter under the spotlight, the room fills with anticipation because everyone knows they are witnessing a piece of minting history that may never appear again. And this intense competition is why values soar into the multi-millions. And beyond the financial aspect, there is also the thrill of discovery. Because unlike many luxury collectibles that only the wealthy can buy, a 1989p quarter error could technically be found by anyone, in circulation, in a forgotten coin jar, or even in a family heirloom collection, and that democratic possibility adds a layer of excitement because it means the next millionaire coin might be sitting unnoticed in someone's drawer right now, and for that reason coin hunting remains a passion for thousands around the world. People combing through change not only for the joy of the hobby but also for the slim yet tantalizing chance of stumbling upon a coin like the 1989p error quarter worth millions. And when we think about the stories behind these coins, we see that each error tells a tale of human oversight, mechanical failure, or historical transition, turning the coin into more than just money but into a narrative artifact that captures a moment of imperfection in the otherwise precise operations of the mint. And this human element is what makes the coin so relatable and fascinating, because we all understand mistakes, but in this case mistakes translate into fortune. And when you step back and imagine collectors paying $10 million for a quarter, it begins to make sense once you appreciate the rarity, the beauty, and the history bound up in that little piece of metal. And so the 1989p quarter teaches us that not all quarters are created equal. Some are destined to become legends because of their flaws. And in a world where perfection is mass-produced, imperfection becomes priceless. And so next time you get a quarter and change, take a moment to look closely. Examine the date, check the mint mark, look for unusual details, doubling, off-centering, or missing layers, because you never know if you might be holding a once-in-a-lifetime error coin that could change your life. And with that reminder, we conclude this fascinating journey into the story of the 1989 quarter dollar worth $10 million because of its errors and mistakes. A story that blends chance, history, and value into one incredible coin. And if you enjoyed this exploration and want to keep learning about the rare coins that could be hiding in plain sight, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another adventure into the hidden wealth of everyday money. Today we uncover the unbelievable story of the 1986 quarter dollar coin, a coin that at first glance looks like any other quarter you might find in your pocket change, but in reality carries a potential value of up to $9 million because of its unique combination of errors, mistakes, rarity, and collector demand that have made it one of the most talked about pieces in modern American coinage. And as we move through this story, you'll see how a small 25-cent piece struck at the Philadelphia Mint could reach astronomical values beyond imagination simply because of how mistakes during its minting process aligned with numismatic history and the hunger of collectors who prize such anomalies. So let's begin by setting the stage in 1986, when the Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the demands of commerce across the nation. The Washington quarter design still dominated the circulation coinage and had already been in place since 1932, featuring George Washington on the obverse and the proud heraldic eagle on the reverse. And though the design was long established and the minting process had advanced over decades, the reality is that no minting facility is immune to errors, die cracks, misalignments, double strikes, off-center strikes, wrong planchets, clipped planchets, overstrikes, and missing details, all of which could occur during mass production and occasionally slip through unnoticed into the hands of the public. And when those mistakes survive the test of time, they become incredibly desirable to collectors who know that rarity plus condition plus historical significance equals tremendous value. And that formula is exactly why the 1986 quarter has become legendary. For while most 1986 Philadelphia quarters are worth their face value of 25 cents, or slightly more if in pristine uncirculated condition, a few error-laden examples have been documented and speculated upon to the point that a particularly rare one has been appraised at a staggering $9 million. Now, how could such a coin even exist? Well, let's explore the known errors that make these coins valuable, starting with double die errors on the obverse, which can create a ghost-like doubling effect on the inscriptions like "Liberty, in God We Trust," and the date 1986 itself, with doubling so dramatic that it can be seen without magnification, and collectors pay huge sums for these kinds of coins. And in the case of the 1986 quarter, there have been reports of extreme doubling that is not only visible but also sharp and unusual enough to suggest that a master die error occurred early in the production run, creating a handful of pieces that escaped into circulation before correction, making them almost priceless today. Then we also consider off-center strikes where the blank planchet is not properly seated in the press, and the design is struck partially off the coin, leaving blank crescents of metal on one side, with the degree of off-center strike determining value. And for the 1986 quarter, there are examples known with up to 70% off-center strikes yet still retaining visible dates. And any coin collector knows that an off-center strike with a clear date is a dream find. Then we move to wrong planchet errors, which occur when a coin intended for one denomination is mistakenly struck on a blank meant for another. For example, a quarter struck on a nickel or dime planchet. And for 1986 quarters, such examples are confirmed to exist with lighter weight and smaller diameter than normal quarters, instantly making them dramatic errors worth thousands or even millions in perfect condition. And then we must not forget clipped planchets where a quarter's edge is missing a curved chunk because of an error in the blank cutting process. Or broad strikes where the collar that contains the metal during striking is missing, causing the coin to spread out larger and flatter than normal. These errors add uniqueness and desirability to the coin market, and when combined with the Philadelphia Mint's massive output, it's easy to see how quality control could slip and a few spectacular errors could escape. But for a coin to climb into the multi-million-dollar range, there must be something even more extraordinary at play. And that something is the possibility of transitional errors and experimental planchets. because in 1982 the US Mint had transitioned away from the 90% silver quarters of earlier decades and the 40% silver special issues into the modern copper-nickel-clad planchets that remain in use today. But transitional errors can occur when older or experimental planchets are mistakenly used in a later year, meaning that a 1986 P quarter could theoretically have been struck on a leftover silver or foreign planchet, creating an ultra-rarity that collectors would fight over with no limit on bids, and the possibility of such a coin existing has circulated among numismatists, with whispers of a small handful discovered and auctioned quietly into private collections for astronomical sums. And when these rumors combine with confirmed dramatic errors like double dies and off-center strikes, the legend of the $9 million 1986 P quarter takes root. Now let's also think about die cracks and cuts where breaks in the die cause raised metal blobs or missing design elements. These add character and are highly collectible, especially if the break is large or occurs across major features like Washington's portrait or the eagle's wings. And some 1986 P quarters displayed die cracks so bold they practically redefined the coin's appearance, making them highly sought after. Then consider the human element. Collectors are driven not only by rarity but also by story. And the story of a common coin struck during the Reagan era of 1986 carrying mistakes so rare that its value eclipses luxury cars, mansions, and even entire businesses makes it irresistible. So when such coins hit the auction block, demand skyrockets and prices climb into millions. And we can't overlook the importance of condition either, because era coins that survive in pristine mint state with full luster, sharp detail, and no circulation were exponentially rarer than those that have been passed around in commerce. So if a 1986 P quarter with a dramatic error was preserved straight from the mint, or discovered in an original roll, it could fetch incredible prices. And indeed, such a combination of dramatic error, rarity, and condition is what has led to reports of a 1986 P quarter valued at $9 million. But let's go deeper into how collectors evaluate such a coin. They examine the strike, weight, diameter, edge reading, luster, and overall eye appeal. They authenticate the error through professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. They compare it to known examples and rarity charts, and once certified, the coin becomes a centerpiece of numismatic history. And at that point, wealthy collectors, museums, and investors compete for ownership, driving values into uncharted territory. And remember too that in numismatics, value is not static but dynamic, shaped by trends, discoveries, and collector enthusiasm. So a coin that was worth a few thousand in the 1990s could be worth millions today. And a coin worth millions now could be priceless in the future, which makes the 1986 P quarter a fascinating case study in how tiny mistakes at the mint can ripple through history to create legendary treasures. And as we explore the possibilities of overstrikes where one coin is struck over another, leaving traces of multiple designs, or partial collars where only part of the rim is properly struck, creating a distorted edge, or missing clad layers where the copper core is exposed, giving the coin a two-toned appearance. All of these known errors for 1986 P quarters further cement their place in collector lore, and the more extreme and dramatic the error, the higher the potential value, until finally we arrive at the notion of one spectacular coin representing the pinnacle of all these errors, a coin that collectors have valued at $9 million because it is unique, unrepeatable, authenticated, and legendary, making it more than just money but a piece of American history, a conversation starter, a museum-worthy artifact, and a symbol of how passion for collecting can elevate the ordinary into the extraordinary. And as you think about this coin, remember that it could still be out there, sitting in someone's drawer, lost in pocket change, waiting to be discovered. And that is the magic of numismatics, the treasure hunt that keeps collectors searching and dreaming. So thank you for joining me on this incredible journey into the world of the 1986 P quarter dollar coin. A coin born from error and elevated by rarity into a $9 million legend. And if you enjoyed this deep exploration and want to keep uncovering the stories of hidden treasures and unbelievable coin values, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more amazing discoveries waiting just beneath the surface of everyday pocket change.